What's up? Welcome to the coach's meeting. That's the coach.
What's going
I'm the
on, guys?
meeting. What's going on, everyone? We're going to be talking about what the Niners have learned. Because if there's one phrase that is sort of a refrain on this show with the coach and I, it's journey of maturity. And
Yeah,
say what you want about the 49ers. They have matured so much as a franchise. They've learned a lot and they've changed. So we're going to talk about that process. But first,
right.
I have a question for you, for the coach and the people watching. And I'm going to explain why I'm asking the question. Do you think Trey Lance requested to be traded? I mean, here's why I say. From
Okay.
his perspective, if he said he wanted a chance to compete, presumably for the starting job. They're giving him a chance to compete for the backup job. If he wants a chance to start this year, he might need to get traded before the draft and not after it. Because once the draft happens, teams that want quarterbacks draft quarterbacks. So from his perspective, if the Niners aren't going to give him what he asked for, a chance to compete, trade me now. What do you think?
Uh, no, I don't think that. I mean, in theory, it makes sense. I just don't think that he's at the he's at the maturation, for lack of a better term, phase of his career where he would be able to ask for a trade yet. I don't necessarily see. I don't. To be honest with you, Grant, I don't know how shrewd or how Trey moves professionally when it comes to his career. He's been really quiet as far as us knowing um, what his true desires are, where he wants to be. And I think he's smart for doing that at this stage. I mean, we've seen that younger quarterbacks who kind of seem to be steering their own career, so to speak, this early, always seem to be steering it in the wrong direction. I think him explicitly asking for a trade kind of puts him in a certain era of that. I mean, it kind of puts him in a certain category is that he's a, you can't ask for a trade and still want to compete for any type of job on the team, right? If you ask for a trade, that means that I want to be gone, right? Not the backup, so with
Look
the
at it this way.
opportunity to start, it would just
Yeah,
be premature to put. There's only one bullet in that gun.
right.
You can't take that back.
But look at it this way. It wouldn't necessarily be like Trey Lance storming into Kyle Shanahan's offense being like, God damn it, trade me. It would be like he's represented by CAA, which is very powerful. And his agents are Tom Condon and Jimmy Sexton. Those guys are very powerful. They have a lot of clients. It would just take one call from someone like that to John Lynch and say, hey, man, if you've decided that Trey Lance isn't going to get a chance to compete for the starting job, then why don't you do right by our client? And that's all you got to say, because the implication is if you don't, we're not going to do business with you anymore. And we have a lot of clients. I mean, things like that happen. That's why you have powerful agents. So
Yeah,
that could be something here. Like
that's
very
viable.
quiet and not like a demand, but like, hey, we heard what you said. And like, why don't you do right by us and give
Yeah.
us a trade?
Now, all right. Now,
Trey
in
would
that
love to
ilk,
go to these 5 teams. How about that?
okay.
Yeah,
Now, if
yeah.
we're talking about
A
if we're talking
conversation.
about the conversation
Yeah.
coming from Trey's side,
Yes.
I would not. I could see that
Because it's
happening.
in their interest, right?
It's
Like,
in their
hey, man.
interest to get Trey
Yeah.
out of there. And
Yes.
it's in the 49ers' interest not to bury a kid that is so strongly represented around the league. So, yes.
You don't want to alienate your relationship with CAA and Tom
Yeah. Now,
Condon,
as far
Jimmy
as,
Sexton.
and right, and I started it out with maybe I misinterpreted what you asked me because
I
I
don't think
said
I asked it well.
in logic, yes, it makes sense for that request to come.
Self-interest. Yeah.
But the context of it literally coming from Trey just
Can't
seemed to
happen.
be a bridge too far, right?
Can't happen.
So,
Yeah.
but yes,
Yeah.
we've talked about this. I think we talked about this a couple of shows ago.
Yeah.
That if the Niners don't want Trey, the best thing to do for Trey is to move him because he hasn't done anything wrong, right?
Right.
Trey's done what he's been asked of. You know, he's studied hard. He's gotten hurt numerous times, and to be honest, I think it's time for the Niners to realize that maybe we necessarily didn't have the space for Trey to grow,
Right.
right?
Right.
And for him and his team to want to get moved before the draft. I mean, if I'm in this camp, yeah, move me.
Because
But from the Niners' perspective, it would be absolutely crazy to move him. because
Right.
we don't know what Brock is. We got Sam. It just we you don't have the you don't have, I mean, this is weird, but the single point of failure of a football team is the quarterback, right? Well, if the quarterback goes, that's the only position where essentially the season can be in jeopardy. And we tout the fact that we have the cheapest and the most, cap friendly room, but as soon as we start losing bodies in there, there's only one person that can take snaps under center, and losing Trey, a viable option who actually knows the system. Just let's take away what we spent to get him, just for the team. Losing him, that's just another body that has to learn our system all over again. And then, honestly, the only quarterback who would be the veteran or the SME, the subject matter expert, if you will, would be Brock. Who's our come on, that'd be crazy.
Yeah. Again, from Trey's perspective, it seems like it's absolutely in his interest to leave this team. I'm sure he feels he could be successful here. Sure, he feels he could do what Brock did, but he's not getting the opportunity. And they've made it pretty clear. Even Kyle said, like, it's going to be pretty tough for Trey to beat out Brock if he's healthy. So it seems like he needs to play this year. He can't afford to sit on the bench for another year. If he sits on the bench in 2023, I don't know that anyone in the league will look at him as a starting quarterback anymore. This is a critical year for Trey. This is it. Make or break year for his career. He needs to play. He needs to show something. Otherwise, he's going to be a career backup like Blaine Gabbert. So,
well, I'll say this. I don't necessarily buy into the 25-year quarterback. Those guys are so rare. The 15+ year quarterback. Really, what you're dealing with,
the franchise quarterback. Yeah.
Really, what you're dealing with 80% of the league is musical chairs anyway. You're trying to find a guy, or you got a guy that's young enough that you can think you can do it. And I feel like there's multiple pockets and situations in the league for a Trey Lance. I don't necessarily think. I think this thread, this narrative of it all working out, yes, this year would be the year, right, where Trey would have to get on. But just to piggyback on what we were talking about, where if we're so sure, let's just do it Kyle's way. If we're so sure that Brock is our guy after 8 games, then what can Trey do with 8 games or a whole season, right? Mm-hmm. We fell in love with him over 8 games, right?
Yeah.
I'm willing to see Trey for a whole season. If Trey can beat out Sam Darnold and make it to week 1, I'm gonna be honest with you, that Brock Purdy experience has an expiration date on it, because we're looking at real carbon data, right? So
yeah. And it's possible what the Niners are doing right now is they pretty much anointed him the starter last year. They didn't make him compete. I think some people on the team resented it, and maybe they're just saying, you know what, we're gonna make it hard for you this year, man. You gotta earn every step of the way. And if you do, you'll earn the respect of your teammates. So, or maybe he's gone in 3 days. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, true. I mean, exactly. Yeah. We could be going through all of this, and the trade could be done already, right? Yeah.
Because real quick, John talks on Monday. My question is he going to be talking about the trade rumors or the trade? You know what I'm saying?
Or is he going to be pouring water on it altogether?
Could be. It could be very interesting, because it seemed like the way the Niners made it seem was like, hey, this didn't come from us. And we haven't changed our, we said at the owners' meetings that we would answer calls on anyone. That's all this is. We answer calls on anyone. That's pretty much their stance right now. But I don't know if I believe that. I guess we'll have to see if something changes in the next few days.
What's kind of crazy about that is that the Niners always choose to, when they really want to put out, red meat for the crowd, they always use national media. They always use the big guys when they want to get out a message, right? They don't even try to hide it. So It's almost kind of like they're clumsy. They overcompensate for the lie that they want to push, because it's
also
so
the
loud.
NFL Network isn't breaking stories that teams don't want to be broken. Like, it's not an investigative.
This is what they do.
No, like, they work for the league. They're there to make all the teams look good. So this is. I just assume if Ian Rappaport broke the story, it's because the Niners wanted him to break the story, not because he
quality assurance with
got
the
one
NFL
over on
Network.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because
the minute Ian Rappaport breaks the story the Niners don't want broken, he's out, and they get someone. He has to work with the teams.
You're not welcome on campus. Like, you can't be around.
You got to play ball. Corey Soto says the only way for this whole Lance situation to avoid being an utter failure is for him to play. Anything else is different degrees of failure.
I agree with that. Yeah. Can I say this, Grant? I think what would be closure is a beautiful death. If he went out there and played 10 games, 12 games, and we just saw that it wasn't it, I feel like that'd be sobering. I feel like there needs to be a little bit of real time on task attached to the myth of Trey Lance. We actually have to see it. And I feel like enough times people will say, all right, well, it just wasn't what we thought it would be. Because that's the game at the end of the day.
Right, for sure. I just think it's interesting that, like, he went third, Zach Wilson went second. Zach Wilson is on a team that has playoff aspirations. It's not messing. They don't. I mean, the head coach is on the hot seat. He's got to win, and they're not trading him. Now they're looking to replace him. They want a different starter, but he's not. He's had 22 starts, and they're still like, you know what? It's not looking good. But at the same time, we can't give up on this because we spent the second pick in the draft on this. And the Niners over here, after 4 starts, being like, screw this guy. We've seen enough. Like,
hey, but there's only one thing that doesn't map with that situation. Robert Saleh does not have the type of leverage that Kyle Shanahan has. So he can't, while he's talking about Zach Wilson, he can't necessarily go as hard as Kyle does because he's a new coach with on a hot seat, as you said, who he just doesn't have the social currency. So a lot of how players are treated, and let's specifically Trey, is because of the fact that I don't really think that there is any checks and balances on Kyle, where he kind of feels like, I got to own this kid. I can't just say what I want about him. You know,
I look at it more from Lynch's perspective. Look at it from the general manager's perspective. John Lynch versus Joe Douglas over in the Jets. Joe Douglas is a career front office guy. Okay. John Lynch is an announcer who became a GM. So John Lynch can do unconventional stuff and say, I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm going with my gut. I'm going to trade a top 3 pick after 4 starts because I like Brock and I think I'm right. If he's wrong, I mean, it's a fireable offense. You never get that stink is attached to you forever. But he could always say, all right, okay, no one wants me anymore in the front. I'll go call games. Fine. Just like Matt Millen did. Joe Douglas can't do that. So Joe Douglas can't just give up on Zach Wilson after 22 starts. He's essentially giving up on him, but at the same time, he has to see that through. Where John doesn't. I mean, Adam Peters does. You know what I'm saying? But John doesn't. And I think that's kind of interesting right here. It might be why the Niners are so gung-ho about moving on. And are they all gung-ho?
Yeah. Hold up, Ig. In some instances, does Kyle not have a backdoor too? Every time we talk about his job security or whether he could get ousted out of a place, what's the first thing?
Oh, but there's 10 teams that would want him. Exactly. So he can act irrationally too or unconventionally. Do whatever the hell I want.
So yeah. Do we have 2 guys that are trying their best to get an ego project to resolution, or are they absolutely married to this because, you know, they burned the ships once they got to shore? Like, are they really married to this? Like what we would say a traditional coaching staff and front office would be.
Yeah. Randy says, if we were in Trey Lance's shoes, wouldn't we request a trade? I think we just said that, like, if we were his agent, we would want him out. We would want him out. And it'd probably be our job to have a very professional, polite conversation with John Lynch about that. Like, hey, man, we're not demanding anything, but if you're shutting the door on him competing, come on.
For lack of a better term, you're fucking with my pedigree. Like, you're not.
Yeah, man. Like, you already torpedoed his first 2 seasons of his career. Like, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Tyler says, Coach, do you think the Niners just like the attention with the quarterback position? Oh, such a good question.
I don't think that they like the attention, but I do think that they think that they're bigger than the position. I think that the Niners as a collective, as a team, I think that they look at the quarterback as another vestige of a team, right? But they don't look at it like, and it's kind of ironic, right? Because this is a team that's had Joe Montana, Steve Young, Jeff Garcia.
But this is a different ownership group. This is a different ownership group.
Yeah.
And they're much more of like a Chicago Bearsy type of like, hey, it's not about the quarterback. Like, yes, it fucking is. And that's what the 49ers proved to the whole world. And you guys should get on. Like, come on, Yorks. What the hell are you talking about?
And also, it's also emblematic of, and I don't want to get like, I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on, but it is also emblematic of the economic turn down in the San Francisco area. The 49ers are a beacon. They actually produce a lot of money. And when you are winning as many games as we win, good enough it may not be good in winning a Super Bowl, but good enough is great in the economy. Right, for making money and getting jobs. So go ahead.
Also, you said something else, like the Niners don't look at the quarterback as being that important, but they know everyone else does. And I think they all get a kick out of everyone clutching their pearls about the quarterback position constantly when their entire attitude there is, doesn't matter. I mean, Kyle's like, I got three guys. It's a good room. Doesn't matter who it is.
I said this.
Yeah.
The quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers is Kyle Shanahan.
Exactly. And I think that's the whole thing. Like, they're not tripping about it. They have confidence in their team. They feel like it's a plug and play position. And they're amused by everyone being like, who's the quarterback? Like, it doesn't matter in their eyes, but it does.
They kind of move like they like the joke is on us. Like they know something we don't know.
Right. Like we're all a bunch of idiots focused on the low hanging fruit while they're building this such a great team that we can't comprehend. That they're light years ahead of everyone else because they devalue the quarterback position. That is the future of the NFL. Maybe not.
I just think that they keep getting bit at the position and they don't want to take the time to really sew it up holistically. And
they want quick fixes.
They want quick fixes, yeah.
Quick fixes.
Yep. And it ain't gonna happen that way. And what's really bad about it is that we have the offensive brain power and the talent to fool ourselves into thinking that we can actually get it done.
They've been fooling themselves for 4 or 5 years. All right, let's talk about what the Niners have learned, though.
Okay.
What have the 49ers learned from the Trey Lance experience, assuming that it might be coming to an end pretty soon? I mean, unprecedented. What did they learn, do you think? What should they have learned?
Well, what they should have learned is no matter what your team wants to do, you move at the pace of your quarterback. What they should have learned is you don't double down on a bad mistake. And if you pay the price tag for a certain asset, any asset, you're not better than the process. You have to play him. You have to play him. I think that is one of the biggest things that I feel like completely turned this entire Trey Lance experience on its head is we didn't play him right away. We were more fixated on winning a Super Bowl and developing a would-be franchise quarterback at the same time, which is, I don't know if that's ever been done. Somebody go into the Google sphere and correct me, but that's very hard to do. And on top of it, we still net really didn't move anywhere. We picked up Trey in 2021 or 2020, and we came in, lost, had a bad year, got hurt, went to the NFC Championship game twice and lost. So for all intents and purposes, the best success that we've had since we got Trey was before Trey, when we went to the Super Bowl. Outside of that, we've done patently equal across the board. One thing that really hurts us with the Trey Lance experience that I feel like that we should have learned is that the culture of your locker room should not dictate who gets on the field. That's got to come from the top down. I understand having a contingency of players that are trusted. I understand having a leadership council, but if what the players are feeling in the locker room is altering what you see as being the best direction for the team, if that's altering the ultimate decision-making process, that's no way to win. That's no way to move forward. And quite honestly, that's not even like an acceptable risk. something that you can take on and just wait for it later. That's something that has to be fixed right away because it's going to keep showing itself up repeatedly.
Yeah.
So those are some of
Yeah.
the things that I feel like we should have learned from the Trey Lance experience is that ultimately, if I wanted to put a bow on it, I would just say that we're just not bigger than the process. We're no better than anybody else. And there's just certain things that we did as a franchise that had everybody scratching their heads. And we're kind of in the same position because of it.
Yeah, I think they should have learned a lot of lessons from this one. One is that they're a bad fit for an inexperienced quarterback. Just a terrible fit. I mean, I think when they drafted Trey Lance, everyone's like, hey, well, this guy's a project, but he went to the best possible situation because the team's so good. It's a double-edged sword with that. I mean, the team has expectations, and they have no patience for a quarterback who doesn't have the basics down, who, needs to learn, who needs some teaching. They have no patience for that. So
they don't have the stomach for it. I agree.
He was screwed before. It was the worst situation for Trey Lance. He'd be better off going to the Bears. So that's one. And then two, the Niners cannot fix their own mechanics. I mean, it was known with Trey Lance, like he's a good athlete, inexperienced. His throwing mechanics are messed up. So someone's going to have to fix that. And sitting him a year, I thought the whole idea was instead of playing him with the messed up mechanics, sit him a year, let him ingrain these mechanics with reps. And then when he comes on the field in his second year, he'll be throwing the way he needs to throw. That never happened.
No.
That never happened. And then they tried to throw out their hands like, well, it's not really what we do here. We work on footwork. Okay. So then you shouldn't have drafted him. Two reasons why you shouldn't have drafted him.
That's such bullshit too, Grant. And I'm sorry for corning in right now, but the truth is that they don't have the bandwidth to do it. You don't
then you
have
should have drafted
enough.
him.
Come on, man. And that, this is the thing that I feel like there's 24 hours in a day. All right. There's only but so much effort and attention that you can put on to certain objectives. And the facts of the matter is that they didn't scope this the right way. They didn't look at the true effort that it was going to take for them to get there and the time, not even the effort, but the time that it was going to take. And they overshot it and they didn't look at it correctly. And once they got them, they tried to put a square peg in a round hole and they buried the kid. But the truth of the matter is that who am I going to put more responsibility on? The 20-year-old, 19-year-old kid that barely played, that had all of the experts and ex-Hall of Famers who bidded on him and said, yeah, let's bring him in the building. I mean, who are we going to put the responsibility on?
Okay, I have a metaphor for you. It's like the Niners bought a really expensive plot of land, very ambitious. They're like, you know what? We're going to build our house. We're going to buy this plot. We're going to build our house from the ground up. And they put down the foundation. They worked on it for like a month and gave up. They're like, this sucks. We're terrible at building houses. And it's not fun. It's way too hard. And so they buy a trailer and put it on the plot of land and live in the trailer and be like, this is cheap. This is great. Oh, we're saving money on electricity. This is way better. Who needs 2 stories for a house? I think this trailer is just perfect. It's like, really? Is that was the first plan, huh? To live in a trailer?
That's what you went with. That's what
you're going with. And I feel like, that's kind of what they're learning. Like, we don't need a big house. We're perfectly fine with a trailer. Like, I don't know about that, but enjoy that.
I came up with an analogy, a metaphor about how I felt about us the other day. I feel like we're kind of like Ocean's 11, man. Like, we're just
how to get a quarterback?
A whole bunch of names. All put together. And for some reason, all of our weird plans end up working in our favor. And we do it with
not like they expected, though.
Yeah. And we do it with a smile and a tuxedo, like it was supposed to happen. The only thing is that we don't get bailed out. And we don't get to lift buildings and do all of this wild shit that nobody thinks of that is not realistic. Like we're this banded cast of people that are just floating on what we think everybody wants to see from us. And everybody else is getting to work. And what's sad about that is that could be the farthest thing from the truth as far as what our team actually is and what they built as an identity. But the only reason why this stuff is creeping in is because of the business that we're conducting at the most important position on the team. which is quarterback. You know, it's like if you can't handle think about it. The operative there really aren't any bad teams with their quarterback situation handled.
That's true. I mean, they might be stuck in playoff purgatory, but they're not bad.
Yeah.
Plumbing God 42 says, John and Kyle, I wonder why the same teams are dominating the regular and postseason. It's because the quarterback outscores and outplays the rest of the team on all sides of the ball. That's why he's the plumbing god. Russ Button says, Niners need more than one quarterback because have shown they can't get through a season with just one. Trading Lance doesn't make sense. But it's on brand because the Niners do lack a little self-awareness. And they think injuries are flukes, bad luck.
And they think that they're still in a Super Bowl chase without having the quarterback situation handled.
Which is amazing. They're the only team that can convince themselves of that.
Yeah.
Merkin Avalo says, do you think the Niners making it seem like they want to quarterback this draft so the player they really want falls to them, assuming they trade Ayuk to move up? I mean, absolutely. Teams do that all the time. It's possible. It's possible. I guess we'll find out in a week. Corey Soto says, I'd take that analogy and say they built a great team, but built backwards. Should have drafted a top prospect while you were constructing.
They had that chance.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it's almost like they passed on Mahomes, blew it, tried to fix the mistake by trading up for a guy who kind of looks like Mahomes, and then blew it again. Honestly.
Yeah.
Like the hair. You know what I'm saying? Like someone pointed out, like, because they're in a picture together, like someone pointed out that Mahomes, like Lance looks like an actor playing Mahomes in a bad movie about
Mahomes' stunt
Andy
double.
Reid. Yeah, he looks like Mahomes' stunt double.
Yo, Trey Lance is Patrick Mahomes' Tubi stunt double.
Exactly. You missed on Mahomes, and you tried to fix it by trading up for someone who looks like Mahomes. Like, that's so bad. Yeah, that's what you did.
I just think that, they don't want to. What worries me is they don't want to look bad. When you're developing a QB as raw as Trey, there's gonna be it's almost kind of like being the parent of a toddler in like a really nice store. You're gonna have to be doing a lot of apologizing. Like the baby's grabbing everything.
So sorry.
I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. He sees the terrible threes, and you know what I'm saying? And I just don't. And with that there's a humbleness and a self-deprecation that you have to take when you really want somebody to develop, because they're just going to do things that by way of their actions, you're going to have secondhand embarrassment. And I just don't see us being able to ingest that as a team where if Trey has a bad game, can George get up there or Kyle get up there and not make comments about the quarterback, even though we know that we're trying to develop a young guy, right? I really don't think that we have the stomach for it. I really think that the time that he truly deserves, where you need a guy like Robert Saleh or Mike McDaniel who's going to come up there and speak life into the quarterback, even though, truthfully, he may look like ass that day. I don't get that from Kyle, and I don't get that from this locker room. I'm not fooled anymore by this brotherhood. This is a frat. It's contentious. There's levels, and it's and it's clicked up. All right, it's not this.
And there are no quarterbacks in the upper tier. They're always treated like pledges.
There are no quarterbacks in the Cabo Club.
They're treated like pledges. Hey, man, clean this up. Yeah. And the ones who it's always like a competition, like who can suck up to the. Although to Brock's credit, he did tell him to shut up, but still, you're not a brother yet.
Yeah,
you're not.
And that's the way this locker room's ran. It's not as growed out as they make it to be.
No, Tyler says it's like buying a brand new car and never leaving the dealership. Yeah, it's true. It's pretty much. Smack Jones says, Grant, ask them, do they think they owe us fans an explanation of how they went from drawing up plays after the combine to him not worth our time? I think that's a good point. I mean, you sold the fans on Trey Lance. You said there was a plan. You said be patient. They were patient. And then after 4 starts without any arrest or, something terrible happening on the field, you say, hey, what they're going to say is it's just that Brock is so special. It's like, I don't know.
Nah, that's the bombast though. Like, I feel like that comment is basically saying, ask him, can you please tell us about us noticing a lie versus now hearing the truth? Like, and that's another thing. Like, they can get as many years as they want to stay here, but you can only be on message but for so long before people start remembering the rhetoric, right?
Yeah.
Before it starts coming back.
Yeah. Plumbing God 42 says the NFL totem from top to bottom is front office, head coach, QB, and then the rest of the team. Kyle and John puts the Cabo click first above all. Yeah, it's like the leadership council on the team, but it's blurred because he's friends with them. He wants to be their friend. So it's like, it feels like a teacher playing favorites in his class.
Yeah.
Like the teacher's pets, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a
commission. Everybody's a boss.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel it. Okay, so we talked about what the Niners should have learned from the Trey Lance experience. Before they can move forward, they also need to learn something from the previous one. What should the Niners have learned from the Jimmy Garoppolo experience so that they don't repeat it?
I think that it's hard to look at the Jimmy Garoppolo experience and completely just say it was bad, right? Because for all intents and purposes, if the Jimmy Garoppolo experience was as bad as it was, then Jimmy would have tanked on Trey as soon as he got in the building. I got to go high on Jimmy first. Jimmy was a great pro to Trey. He was a great pro to the locker room. He could have really kicked up dust, which we've seen. Most quarterbacks are not just going to stand idly by and let their backup get drafted in front of them. So one of the things is that one of the things they can learn from the Jimmy experience is making sure that you get a true man in the position, because Jimmy did. He was a good quarterback for this team. Another thing that they can learn from the position is learning how to protect your quarterbacks more. A part of the offense has to be not schemed up so tilted towards advancing the ball that we forget how to protect. And that's something that I learned at a very early age in football, is that it's not sound if you can't block it. I don't care what you can't block it, then it can't be ran.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Right. And
it only works on a blackboard or whiteboard,
exactly,
as you want to call it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could draw it up, but conceptually it may work. But on the field, if a guy starts getting enough keys to know that he's not getting touched on things, minutia can throw everything off. And we didn't protect Jimmy. We didn't protect Jimmy a lot. I feel like there was a lot of times where the offense that we built for Jimmy was more predicated on kind of pigeonholing where he could throw the ball, but we never really put Jimmy on the move a lot. We didn't really give Jimmy anything where, it's just, for me, I want you to answer this question for me, Grant. How can we talk about Jimmy overthrowing and not being able to hit deep passes down the field, but then at the same time, we can talk about Jimmy's arm strength, about where the ball can go on the field? I feel like you can pick your spots. Brock Purdy's arm, in my eyes, was a tick weaker than Jimmy Garoppolo's arm, to be honest with you. And a lot of don't look at me like that. A lot of the throws and a lot of the offense that I saw that was being opened up for Brock is some of the things and stuff that I could have seen being dialed up for Jimmy. It's hard right now. My stomach is on fire because it's hard for me to just go so positive on everything that Jimmy gave us and the things that we've learned from him being here. But I just think that one of the biggest things that was huge is that we paid Jimmy early. One of the reasons why we were even in this position where we wanted to move him, or he was able to be stomached for us to build the team that we did around him, is that when he did show us the viability, those 6 games that he played in a row, we paid him. And he could have been a huge problem for us fiscally down the road had we not done that.
Okay, so you're focused on how the Niners sort of didn't put Jimmy in his best situation and could have done better by Jimmy. That's an interesting way to look at it. They probably should have learned from it. I'm looking at it from the perspective that it didn't work out. He didn't win the Super Bowl. He's gone. And they felt he wasn't right for them. So how do you not make this mistake again? What they should have learned is you need a guy who can move. Jimmy can't move. So you need a guy who can move. That's one thing they learned. You need a guy who can push the ball down the field effectively. I don't care what his arm strength is. He's not a good downfield thrower. That's two things. What you said, don't spend big money on a freaking mediocre quarterback. I think they've got the picture on that. And then the last one is they should have learned to not fall for a quarterback so fast. You brought that up. And I don't know if they learned that one. Because I feel like at least someone in the organization is doing it again with Brock. And, I know he can move better than Jimmy, and he might be able to push the ball down the field a little bit more accurately than Jimmy. But I feel like he's essentially a cheaper Jimmy. And they're moving a little too fast with this. They're acting like he's proven something when it's just been 8 games. And I'm a little afraid that they haven't learned from the Jimmy Garoppolo experience and that they're doomed to repeat it. And that when they finally go all in with Brock Purdy and realize that, you know what, like Jimmy, he's not quite gifted enough. In 2 years, they're going to trade up in round 1 again for another quarterback. And then just repeat that pattern. That's what I think.
All right. Well, I'm subject to change my opinion with new information. I'm not changing my full opinion, but from hearing what you have to say, one thing that I will say about, I'll say that I said that I felt like Jimmy had a stronger arm than Brock. But if I am the 49ers, the difference between hopping on Jimmy right away and hopping on Brock right away is that Brock is a rookie. And Jimmy was already in the league for multiple years and sat behind a Tom Brady and showed the promise that he did right away. And also, Brock processes it's not even close. Brock processes on the field the actual offense that we want way better than Jimmy ever did. And that's the biggest thing that I saw why, if I was to kind of, in your words, make the same mistake again, fall in love with a quarterback too soon, those are the things that if I was to do it versus Brock, and you got to think about it, with Trey, it's been said how good of a processor and fast thinker Trey is, but if I had to say anything that didn't look like a rookie with Brock is how fast he processes that offense. It's special.
Sure, absolutely, and I think what he established is that he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. But I think what the Niners should have learned from the Jimmy Garoppolo experience is that the Jimmy Garoppolo bar is pretty low, and that Kyle Shanahan, although he couldn't win with C.J. Beathard and Brian Hoyer early on, he can win with a lot of quarterbacks, especially when his team is healthy. And you don't spend for these guys. You don't get tied down to a mediocre quarterback. Keep your options open. And maybe that's what Kyle's trying to do. Maybe that's what Darnold's here. Maybe that's why Trey Lance is still here. I think Kyle might be trying to keep his options open. Don't settle for the first quarterback who makes you feel fuzzy inside. You know what I'm saying?
So let me ask you this, man. But I really like the fact that you brought that up. The Jimmy bar was way too low. So if you think about it, if Brock comes in and has the type of season that he did, right? Would that not be an eye opener where, like, if we're coaches, we're nudging each other like, now wait a minute. If Brock can come in here and do this over Jimmy, what the hell have we been waiting on Trey to do all this time? Right.
True.
And
True.
It could kind of like reset everything where it's like, all right, well, maybe it is us.
If Trey can't even reach the Jimmy level, then what does that say about Trey? And that maybe that explains their evaluation.
Yeah. Because you can't go back and say, well, shoot, if we can go find a guy like Brock to give us this, what we've been begging out of Jimmy, and we completely overshot and overreached to go get Trey, who's to say that we can't double down and find something 10 times better trying to go get an under? But
isn't that what they're doing right now? Like, isn't that what Sam Darnold isn't that what Kyle would probably say? Like, look, I like Brock, nothing against Brock, but I also like Sam Darnold, and I'm heavily involved in Brock's success. So watch what I do with Sam.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, real quick. Kyle was tied to Jimmy because he didn't have a winning record without Jimmy. His record was awful without Jimmy. But as soon as he won with Brock, then they could get rid of Jimmy because he could prove that he could win with other quarterbacks. But I feel like the other edge of that is now he's tied to Brock. And he's like, wait. What I'm trying to prove is that I can win with lots of quarterbacks. Me. It's me. I'm trying to prove that it's not Brock, it's not Jimmy, it's me. And
I'm the common denominator.
Exactly. So we'll see if he sticks to that. Joseph says I came in as the 420th viewer on 420. Hey, holler. Nice.
Oh, it's being celebrated today, babe.
Nice. Shetty Murphy says how many more? Put it in the air. Shreddy Murphy says how many? Kiss the sky, baby. Shreddy Murphy says how many more Kyle Shanahan years, if no Super Bowl? Counting the days. 15, 30.
Yeah, this has got the potential to be on like Marvin Lewis type tenure. Like he could be here for a very long time because there's always going to be somebody that's going to love the stories. There's going to be somebody that's going to prop him up, and especially if we're lovable losers, if we have famous losses, it's going to be enough to keep Kyle around.
Yeah. Tony says maybe give Trey the same playbook as Brock Purdy and see what happens. Love the show, GC. Shout out to Coach's barber. Dude, my barber ghosted me. I just would always walk in. I went last week and the guy was like, he's gone. No, he's gone. He doesn't work here anymore. I'm like, what? So I got to find him or find a new barber.
I got a secret code though. I cut my own hair. So I have no excuse not to have my geometry tight when I come on here. I cut my own hair. Got me through school, got me through military school. So yeah.
All right, we were just talking about this, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. Do you think Kyle Shanahan is sold on Brock Purdy? The way I read it is John is sold. He's pretty much said so. But at the same time, he was the guy who was sold on Jimmy Garoppolo. He seems like the kind of guy who doesn't want quarterback drama. He wants a quarterback. And he saw enough from Jimmy in 5 games. He saw enough from Brock in 8 games. He wants to commit. He is he wants to be married. And Kyle is like, no, I'm a bachelor. The way I look at it, I don't know that he's necessarily sold on Purdy, which is why I think there's some disconnect with this organization. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a coach, if I'm Kyle, why would I be sold on Brock? I mean, Brock wasn't somebody that I necessarily was looking at coming in. He was Dick Mullins. He's almost like a donut to the car that I drive, Right. And the one thing about donuts is we all know they got 40 miles on them. So, you can only
you can't go more than 45 miles an hour. You got to stay in the right lane.
Got to stay in the right lane with a donut. And the way football works is that I feel like a lot of fans don't recognize is that there's 2 sides to this. There's what we think, and then there's what the contemporaries see. Brock Purdy not being tied to Kyle Shanahan does so much more for his cachet as a coach than it does for him being a head coach of the 49ers, right? Because that means that owners are looking at Kyle like, man, he can just get it done with anybody. He can make things happen.
Which is what he's been trying to prove forever, right?
Yeah. So and also if you think about it, John Lynch is done with playing in the NFL and really the executive side of what he's done in the NFL. He's done enough. Really, John, in some instances, I would say that John wants this Super Bowl more than Kyle does, so he could just get out of this, right?
Yeah.
Kyle is the lifer.
I agree.
Right?
I think Kyle is like, dude, I think John's like, man, let's settle on Brock. Let's have a quarterback. Let's end this freaking drama. And Kyle's like,
I'm good. Because this is what I do, right?
Yeah.
I'm in my suit. You get to watch the games. I'm in them. So
yeah.
With John, I think that it is more apt for John to say, look, we got our guy. Let's win this damn thing so I can go back to the booth and make $15 million a year. Like, I want this to be over.
I'll make more money in the booth. I'll make more money in the booth. Yeah.
I want this to be over. You know what I'm saying? And you just want to keep playing around with this and win games. I've won Super Bowls. I've won games. This doesn't move me. I want a Super Bowl.
Yes.
So
I completely agree with this. This is dead on. Dead on.
Yeah. I think
John would like to be done.
Yeah, I think that he's ready to be done. Even with the back and forth of how John was bullish on Brock before Brock even had the surgery. He's our guy. Yeah. We're cool with Trey being on the team for now. Like that to me says that I have the conch right now. It's my turn to speak. And I'm going to move this thing forward. And that will also be something to pay attention to on Monday. How matter-of-factly he is about Trey being the backup. Like,
and is Kyle Shanahan there?
Kyle's not.
Does Kyle Shanahan sleep at the wheel? Yeah, he's asleep at the wheel. Which is why John Lynch is doing what he's doing. Because John Lynch, say what you want, very shrewd man. Very shrewd. And it must be tough to go head-to-head with him, even if you think you're his boss.
If you think that John is going to be the face of this franchise. Like John Lynch was making his bones in the NFL when Kyle Shanahan was popping his zits. That man has been playing. He's got Super Bowl cachet. He is known and has real social currency around the league. You don't pull off the mid-season trades.
It's very valuable to the 49ers. Like, remember when Trent Baalke was here, anytime they did anything, everyone said the Niners were stupid and incompetent. But anytime John Lynch does anything, everyone's like, that's a good move. Because John Lynch has respect.
You do business with who you like. That's just the facts. There are just certain deals that teams will never get because the guy that's on the other end of the phone is not goated. He's not vested. And having that with John Lynch, he's a lot more. He don't let the smiles fool you. John is very powerful.
Extremely.
He's very powerful.
Yeah. And again, I think he provides a function for that organization that Kyle can't provide. He is the guy who gives them credibility in the eyes of the media. Kyle does some weird stuff and doesn't always explain it. John is the Hall of Famer who's very clean cut and smooths it over and explains it. And everyone's like, well, that makes sense. John said it. That makes sense. And Baalke couldn't do that. Kyle can't do that. Jed can't do that. And the fact that he's the only person in that organization who can do that, he knows he's got leverage there. Mm-hmm. So he's using it, I would think. Good for John. I like John. I like John very much, and I think he brings tremendous value to that organization.
Definitely. I mean, because one of the reasons why you really like him is because when you truly understand the power that he has, you gain even more respect for how he wields it. He's a very good steward of being the type of NFL man that he's an NFL man. There's a whole different level.
And people are like, he's not the real GM. Adam Pearce picks the players. He's just a face guy. Like, nah, he's like Carmen Policy. And Carmen Policy was extremely important. Like, you are the face and voice of the organization, and you are the difference between people taking it seriously and not.
John Lynch is the reason. Yeah. John Lynch is the difference between people picking up the phone or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's get off the quarterback thing. Mm-hmm. I brought this up a few weeks ago. When the Niners drafted Nick Sakel, they didn't even know how to pronounce his name, and they didn't really explain what the plan was. It seemed like John Lynch didn't know who he was. And they said something about, we might try him at center. He played left tackle in college. I never saw him play center. I saw him play a little guard. He's 6'6". Looking at all the right tackles the Niners have had, they're about his size. I'm thinking, are they not talking about it, but is he someone that's going to get some looks at right tackle? You think he's someone that could take the spot?
I don't think that he's somebody who could take the spot. But I do feel like if he's going to find his way on the field this year, that would be his quickest route to the field. And now that I'm not here to call him a tackle. I don't know. What I do know about him physically is that he does fit the mold. He does fit the frame of a big tackle that does carry a lot of surface area for our outside zone and the reach blocks that we ask for that right side tackle to do. However, I really haven't seen enough of him in space to see if he actually has the feet or the athleticism to do it. So there's that, right? I did.
He's got the testing numbers and the frame, but that doesn't mean that he can do it.
Exactly.
He played at Fordham.
In theory, he would be. You could stick him over there, but that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, that might be a 5-year project like Jake Brendel. He might get there when he's 30 years old, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And what they do feel confident with him doing is playing on the inside. So I saw him play some center near the end of some games this season, and he seemed to be serviceable. I could see why. He's young. He's very young. He's eager. He's strong. But I don't see him at right tackle. I don't see him at right tackle because I think that when you have athleticism, that type of athleticism, you wouldn't put it at center. You would at least try to put it at guard first to see if he could pull and get out and run. So the fact that they're starting him at center almost kind of makes me feel like because of his size, and he may be flexible because he maybe has good low center gravity to put him at center, right? And being able to have that inside and chase down angles, that may be a reason why they put him on the inside. But ultimately, it's very hard to hear about a guy going from the inside to the outside. It's usually the other way around.
If you're looking at him inside, you're thinking he might not be able to hang outside. So let's help him out.
So,
yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
for me to see him to go outside, it would be a welcomed addition, but I don't see it.
Okay.
I don't see
okay.
it. I don't see it.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, they're going to have to find a right tackle because I am still skeptical about this Colton McKivitz plan. But I was skeptical about Jake Brendel too, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Manny says,
we're going to handle that in the draft.
Manny says, I don't get the Purdy Garoppolo comparison. Purdy is elite, extending and creating plays. Garoppolo is a statue that only checks down. That's true. I think Purdy checks down a lot too.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot.
And Purdy, and to take it a step further, there's a lot of times where Purdy has done tons of scrambling and still check down.
Yes. I mean, his legs are extremely quick, exciting to watch, but at the end of the play, it's a pretty pedestrian throw usually.
Yeah, he's still that's something that I noticed that I kind of charted down in the future. All of the scrambling is good, but if we're watching these scrambles just to get him to evade, that should say something. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost kind of like you're not scrambling as a threat. You're scrambling just so we don't have worst case scenario, right?
Right.
And it's like, how many times can you hold your breath and watch that without the inevitable happening?
Yeah, and I think from Kyle's perspective, like if a quarterback who's a little bit better than Jimmy can take the offense to a level where we're scoring 30, 35 points a game, well, what if we have a quarterback who's a little bit better than Brock?
Exactly.
It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, relax. Stop looking with beer goggles because it's 2 a.m. and you've been on a losing streak. Like, there are better quarterbacks than Brock. Let's be patient and confident and not get rid of Brock. Obviously, we got him for 3 more years for free, but bring in Sam Darnold too. Bring in Dorian Thompson-Robinson too. Like, until we actually give someone $200 million guaranteed, let's keep bringing guys in and see what happens.
Yeah, I really think they feel that way because I feel like the pressure of having a guy like Trey in there's way too much scrutiny on him, right? So it's like, we don't need this hot spotlight. Let's just bring in the guys and then slow down the scrutiny. TBD.
Yeah, no one cares about Sam Darnold. No one cares about a 3rd-round pick you draft this year. Like, guys who don't have the whole weight of the NFL world watching and analyzing and critiquing. And that's what Trey needs too, man. He needs to get the hell out of a big market and go somewhere where people leave him alone because he's a work in progress. And the Niners are just drama. Like, go to Tampa. Go to Tennessee.
And I don't think the Niners want it. I honestly think that, and I said this before, I think that they don't want a competition. They don't, and not for the simple fact that they don't want to see what Trey can do, but I think that they are over the attention. They don't want another competition.
It's a circus, and then it's out of your control. And then people get less reps. For life Niner is a Niner for life. Thank you for being a new member and a Niner for life. It's lunchtime for me. What you got going on the rest of the day?
It's 4:20 for me. You know what I got
going on
for the day.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, it's nice. Well, enjoy that. It's not 4:20 for you. It's freaking 3:10 for you. So you got an hour. You got an hour more to be productive. Go. Do your best work.
I like the way you did
that. All right, everyone. I hope you guys are celebrating today and partaking because it's your civic duty as an American. It's responsibly, of course. Enjoy your weekend. I'll be back doing stuff, but I'm going to go work very hard the rest of the day. Take care.
All right, guys.